So, Guy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Myself, Guy Esparon. I was born here at Anscoai, further down, and went to school at Takamaka, just up the road here, primary. And then I went to secondary school at Royal for 4 years. Actually, I didn't finish Form 4. And walked every day from Anscoai to Royal and back. And basically, actually, I don't remember, but the thing was, it was fun because you had a lot of friends. We had a lot of school friends, and there was very few little transport those epoch, and we didn't know otherwise. So I would leave in the morning with the only uniform I had, with the red epaulets, and coming up early morning, I would distribute milk that my father used to basically produce at the property, and basically we were working for the Desaubin family. My dad was like a supervisor, jack of all trade. So I would always smell of milk. I hated it, and so then nighttime on my return I had to pick up the glass bottle, take it to the river, put gravel, wash it, and put it on a piquet, like with this timber called boisier, because everything was recycled on it. That's what basically I've never kind of understood the transition as we've moved forward, how we were so unique, we were so environmentally conscious, even with the lack of education, the people, because everything was recycled then. I mean, there was no other way, and life was tough. But today, where I think life is easier, I thought we would have learned from it, but we haven't, So I think I was halfway through secondary school at Royal in Form 4 that the owner of the Anscoai property, Marie-Thérèse Desaubin, decided that I should quit school and go and work for André Delorme at the chantier in town as a clerk messenger. And I did, because I had no say. My family were very poor.
Why did they decide you had to quit school?
Because mom thought it was a good opportunity for me, and we really didn't have much say then, and even I hated it because I wanted to finish my studies, my school. I had planned to study marine engineer, and that was in the back of my head, even though I'd never seen a ship, and because the only ship you saw was the one, the BI steaming ship that used to come here, the Karenja, Kampala, and a few others. Those years they used to travel from East Africa or India, before the airport was built. But anyway, I think I worked for the Delorme family for about, I mean, maybe 2 years, 2.5 years, I don't quite remember. And then I got a job working with FIBA, putting the antenna at Union Vale, those big antenna in the ocean, as a chain boy surveyor. Then I quit that and worked for Costain. They were reclaiming the town, as also chain boy with surveyor. But during that process, my sister had moved to Australia, to Melbourne, to marry her husband. So she was making arrangement for me to join her, and because those years Australia was a land of opportunity. We all thought there was a Dollar Tree in everyone's backyard. Did I know ever? I wasn't very happy about it because I had kind of done my Siemens book to start working on the Lindblad Explorer and tankers, which was very popular, because Seychelles then were mariners. We were proud mariners in this country. The tankers, the cruise ship, the schooners. It was very, very vibrant. People were proud. And because you work on tankers, you came back all dressed up. The girls used to love you a little bit more than being stuck on the island. But anyway, eventually I left on a cargo ship called the Mulungushi. There was 4 of us, Seychelles. This lady and 2 other blokes. So we traveled from Mahé to, that was in 1971, I think, all the way to Singapore, about 16, 20 days. It was a long trip. And I vividly remember the chief engineer was English guy. He was deaf, but he would play Hey Jude very loud on those reel, you know, the old reel-to-reel thing, you know, in Akai, very loud, and I fell in love with that song, you know. But from Singapore, I had to probably catch my first plane ever on Qantas. Never seen a bus, never seen a train, never seen a plane. And you could imagine how frightened I was, with £50 sterling in my pocket. And I landed in Tullamarine Airport in Melbourne, and then to my dismay, my sister was pregnant and she forgot that I was arriving. So I sat at the airport most of the day. Eventually, one of the Australian airport guy came and said, "Are you okay?" With my little English, I said, "This is where I live," because I had the address of 6 Dicking Street, East Melbourne, where to go. So he put me in a taxi and sent me there. And when I got there, Claire, "Oh, you arrived, yes, you know, you didn't come and meet me, you know." So from there, that's basically, I started working, and Australia became my home, even I didn't like it at first, and never did, but I won't say never did, but I was an islander boy.
You missed
know?
home.
I miss home, yeah. I miss mum, but so from Melbourne, you know, you work everywhere, you know, and you hate winter, you know, and you learn to drive. You have your first car. I had a Torana SLR 5000. They had just come out. Then one day I decided to move to Gove in the northern Australia for on a bauxite mine, working there. And then that's where everything started. And basically then from Gove, I moved to Groote Eylandt in the manganese mine. And then while in Groote Eylandt, I joined Norforce, a reserve army unit, based on Aboriginal soldiers. The idea was to raise the level of soldiers from 60 to a battalion. And the area of operation, the area of Norforce, was 1,800,000 square miles of or kilometers of land, you know. So we specialize in vehicle, foot, and water patrol. And then you do 13 specialist courses. And I became an instructor, like, how do you say, very respected by the Aboriginal community, because there was a lot of flack at first, but I was also working in the community of Ngurugu as a community development officer, and helping them, you know, community development, you know, sports and other stuff, and building sports infrastructure, and I started the May Day Carnival, you know, and then in 1998, I think it was, I went to Sydney for the Aboriginal National Reconciliation, and I think that's where I met Alain Saint-Ange. He was working there at the time, even we didn't know each other then. And then I went there with the Aboriginal people. But I was very involved with the Ngurugu Aboriginal people, and in my heart I'm still living at Ngurugu, you know. And
so were the part of the army, the battalion that you were in, were they mostly Australians, or were they from everywhere? Just, you know, Australia was such a young country. So
yeah, well, mostly Australian,
yeah.
you know, all Australian, but Norforce, most of the instructors are non-Aboriginal, you know, but everyone else is full-blood Aboriginal, you know, or basically coloured, you know, I can't say half caste, I don't like that word very much, but you know, indigenous soldiers, you know, it was based all on the, I won't say just indigenous soldiers. Norforce was open to boys and girls of Australian society. But at that time, during my time, girls were not allowed to do the patrolman course. The patrolman course is basically after a recruit, you do patrolman course. It was a bit like the Carter course you do in the SAS. And I did train also with the special forces, you know, because we use a lot of their training, PAM, part of our, you know, they modify the SAS unit and incorporate Norforce. And Norforce was a very important unit during the Japanese invasion of Darwin in 1944, I think it was, or 43, you know, and the unit then was called the Nakarus. You know, they were the bush commando, you know, and basically they ride on horseback. They were doing a lot of skirmish. It's the second priority unit in Australia, you know. But so I helped develop that. But then that gave me a great rapport with all the Aboriginal communities, because in Arnhem Land, you know, we were, you know, from Elko, Yirrkala, you know, Numbulwar, Rose River, Milingimbi, Remengining, you know, all over the place. So I had a C-130 or a Caribou aircraft at my disposal at many times, where we would pick up soldiers and come, you know, rifle training or whatever, going to Gove. It was like doing the milk run, you know, so, and we were Arnhem Squadron, you know, that's Southeast Arnhem Land. Then you got the Kimberley Squadron, the Centre Squadron in Alice Spring and Burulula, a bit of that, and North Queensland Squadron, you know, all the way to Wipa and you know, all this area, and basically, and so with Norforce as a recruit, then you get promoted, and I was promoted to corporal at a very early age because of my leadership, you know, and also my rapport with the Aboriginal people. Did the section commander's course, and all the units in Australia, Army, Air Force, did the patrol commander's course in Norforce, which we did just outside Darwin. And basically, and our base of Norforce is based in Larrakia in Darwin itself. You know, that's where Norforce or Norcom is based. And
So how much time did you spend in Darwin, in that territory?
so I would say, oh my God, I would say over 25 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So at that time, you had spent more of your lifetime with Aboriginal communities
Yes,
than with
yes,
any other.
exactly, yes, and that's just not in Groote Island, but at Yirrkala also in Gove, because in Gove I used to coach soccer, and you know, different people altogether, you know, because they speak Yolgo Mata, and Groote Island they speak Anile Yakwa, and Numorwa they speak Nugubuyu. In Nuka they speak Creole, which is a pidgin kind of. So I was able to learn a lot of a bit of that dialect, especially in Groote Island, because in Groote Island I got initiated in a tribe, the Lalara tribe, and so I had a skin mother. Her name was, I cannot mention her name because she's passed away, because I've done ceremony. I cannot mention the deceased name, but she was from the Wannabe family coming from the mainland in northern Arnhem Land. And her father was a great Takia. Takia was one of the greatest warriors that was in Arnhem Land during that time, you know, and basically he got captured by an Englishman called Fred Gray. He was developing a community called Ambakamba, like the Christian Mission Society, and Fred Gray took him to Darwin because at that time there was a Japanese trepang fisherman that had basically raped an Aboriginal girl, and Takia speed them. And so he was taken to Darwin by Fred Gray in a lugger, and then put in a box and thrown in the Darwin harbour, you know, and the people have never got over this. And my mother, Galija, came from that tribe, you know, and she never knew her age, and she was an artist. I've got lots of her work up there. But I was very fortunate that my biological mother got to meet her. And so Mom came on 2 occasions to Arnhem Land. She visited my sister in Brisbane and in Melbourne. Then I flew her to Groote Island to stay with me. And Mom got to live with the Aboriginal people, with all the old ladies. She used to take the broom and sweep, and I think this is why I live a bit like that, with all the dogs. You know, she used to kick, you know, because in Seychelles you don't allow dog in the house.
Okay.
And she would cook sticky rice and fish for them every day, and basically So I had a great rapport, and also you speak a bit of their language, that breaks the barrier.
Wow.
But I was very involved in the National Truth Reconciliation, death in custody. I was a little bit kind of, and on the Lost Generation, I was very much, not fully on the panel, but, you know, how do you say, as a spokesperson at times. Yeah.
Is that how you became an environmentalist?
Actually, the Aboriginal people, I was always at heart because you know, our concept of, you know, an environmentalist in Seychelles, we were very, you know, we were great because if I remember correctly, prior to my departure to Australia, we had maybe one tip here, you know, a garbage tip, you know, because people used to dig trenches at their place and bury most of the stuff, you know, and the island was basically totally different to what it is now, you know, because the cinnamon was harvested, so all the big property were manicured, you know, with landscaping, and so we didn't have all these invasive plant species. But now since the First Republic, everything's been let go, you know, because ownership of land has changed a lot.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, and basically, because the early days, you know, the people working for plantation owners, you know, they used to be pocketed everywhere on the property, like at Ascoi where I was. There was people living in the mountain, you know, Pierre-Henri. There was people living down and all thatch roof house, you know, but how do you say, there was pocket of people as guardian, I suppose, as policemen. But everything you grew, then, you know, the owner was entitled to half, and you, even if you rear a pig, you know, a big pig, and they get to keep half, and you know, because that was the arrangement on the property. But I think we felled trees then, you know, but we felled trees for the demand because, as you can see, all the trees were felled by those big saw there. You know, I still have them from my father's era, you know. And basically, and you know, like, you know, the push pull, you know, and but we, and that taught me to respect. We fish very sustainably then. Our population was not maybe 100,000, but we were, I think the Seychelles people were great conservationists, you know, and we had few hotels, you know, because Intendance, then that's when, actually prior of me leaving, that's when Monsieur Lefebvre started building the road. All the dirt were terraced near that little shop there and cut down by trucks. And a lot of the young guys, a lot of them passed away. They used to drive those little dumper. We had the coconut tree with the two, and the first mini-mock started coming on the sandy dirt road at Intendance. Even I wasn't really associated with Intendance. I was at Oscoai, but every Sunday we came to swim in the Lamar. You know,
So which years are this around?
I would say 69, 68, 69.
Okay, and the first big hotel was in the 70s in the Seychelles?
Yes, yeah.
So
Well,
it's just-
the first big hotel, the Reef Hotel, of course, not Home and a few others, but Reef was really kind of the big one for the airport, you know, because, and Reef, I think a lot of people don't know, but Reef, the whole thing of the Reef, the battle between the British government giving independence, I think was more for the British public servant to come and spend their R&R at the Reef Hotel, you know.
Okay.
But then it became one of the greatest.
An institution.
Yes, and it's the only place ever where Seychellois and foreigners used to gel and mix, and it was fun going to the Reef Hotel. And this has disappeared because those years you were proud to go to the Reef Hotel because the staff, the Seychellois barman and whatever would welcome you with open arms. But there's a tendency these days, if you go to a five-star institution, you are treated with, and by Seychellois staff at the time, you are not very welcome, to tell you that. You don't feel warm, you know, and we've lost that, you know, which is really sad, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about how much Seychelles has changed since then.
Over my years, over my years, basically living in Australia, of course, then I got married, I had my family, you know, but I used to travel every couple of years. I think from my first departure and my return was 1975 going to 1976. And the reason I say that, and that's because that's where I met my first wife. You know, we were both young. Mom didn't like the idea very much. And we got married at Cacholo. Cacholo was kind of new then, you know, and so we met at the dance floor, and basically she was this little spunky white lady, and basically I knew her from St. Clair School because in town I used to know the student from Regina Mundi. I used to know all the school, you know, and the girl used to look so pretty, you know, and you know, except the trucking station American used to marry and steal a lot of them, you know, and I said we didn't like the American then very much. I think boys, you know, the only thing we liked was a big Triumph they used to ride. But so 75 and then 78 I came back because my daughter was born in 77 and then my son in 78. So my son, we came here so my son could be Christian. We did the christening at Saint-Sopin with my mom and this other guy, Vital, and he was the godfather. And after that, my children has never come back because I got divorced in 82, and my children never came back. And my son is planning to come back in March next year, so I'm really, and that's
for the first time in.
Yes, all these years.
Wow.
Yeah, he's 40. What's that? 78. He's 43. So
And he's in Perth now?
in Perth, yes. He lives a little near Albany, a place called Denmark. And he's there with his two sons. And my daughter, she also lives in Perth, you know, and with his 3 girls and a son. So I'm really looking forward to welcome my children home, you know, because this is their roots, and I'm kind of, this is my home also. Even Australia has been very part of my life all these years, you know, and Australia has, you know, I do not just the white Australian way of life, but the Aboriginal part of life too, you know, and so.
Why haven't they come back?
Maybe financially, maybe, you know, even my son's been coming every year, he's never arrived, and my daughter maybe work and hardship, you know, people think in Australia you kind of, there's a golden money tree in the backyard, but you work like a dog there, you know. Seychelles don't realize how lucky we are. If we could all contribute and give a little bit and be proud of who we are, this unique culture, you know, we would be like, how do you call it? We are sought after destination, but we also, look our origin, white, black, Chinese, Indian. There's no barrier here, we're all human. Even that's changing a little bit too. I noticed the change, you know, but which I don't like. Maybe I can speak about this a little bit later on.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, but it's getting a bit sad, you know, because, but then, you know, there was an element of racism then, you know, but we didn't know otherwise. You know, you were Catholic, you were, you know, everybody could tell you you're doing something wrong, you know, or get, you know, sometimes even get a little stick on the bum, you know. And don't go and tell your parents because you'll get even more, you know, but you can't do this now, you know. We've changed and we've moved, our transition has really, how do you call it, accelerated like a Porsche. But like my great uncle Guy Morel would say, we're still a banana republic with a Cadillac thinking, you know. I'm sorry to use that term, but we tend to be that, you know, because we have to, you know, we have to wake up to ourselves, you know, and basically, and my message also to all these young Seychelles professionals, don't sit back, stand up. Tell them if things are wrong, tell them, you know, don't be bullied, especially the girls. Don't let the chauvinist male, you know, like be pushed over. Don't, you know, stand up, you know, you are the think tank, you know. My energy and focus at the moment is all these young academy in Seychelles, like to really, stand up and have a voice, and be counted, and because slowly our politics are failing them a bit, and
Oh, absolutely.
we've gone maybe a long way, but if we're not careful, we're going backwards too, and how do you say, and so we have to be very, very careful there, But going back to my family, it's got two sons and a daughter, and all my beautiful grandchildren. And basically here, I've come to set up I'm like an anchor, and this will belong to all of them. My coco de maître, that's my first granddaughter, but unfortunately it might be a male, so I'm up to swap over. So that's Georgia, and that's Eden. So this could change because I got a few others to put to. But the whole purpose of me being here is basically to welcome my family to this country one day, to our country, to their country, because they're very much Seychellois. Their mom is Seychellois, and I'm also Seychellois, and proud to be. Yeah.
And as we all should be. And it's always been absurd to me to think that we're a population of 100,000 people, we have more than 100 islands, and there is so much poverty. And it would seem, to a business-minded person, especially in Australia or in America, that's a situation that doesn't make sense, right? We have so much wealth in terms of tourism, in terms of fisheries, and yet there's so much poverty. Do you think that the division between the poor and the rich has gotten larger and larger since you were a child?
You know what? When you look at our political history, okay, for that first, second republic, I wasn't here very much, so even I was very much interested, following what was happening. Of course, we had the dictatorship regime then, and I think looking back, President Rene moving people out of thatch roof house to maybe better dwelling, to their dream brick home, and the salary, people started basically earning maybe a better life. But looking back now, honestly, especially me with my simplicity of my life, I've seen it all, but now, okay, I've got a few luxury in my house, but I still catch the bus to go to town, even there's a car up the road, because I'm so focused on my carbon footprint. But looking back now, the division in this country is getting out of hand. It saddens me, because there seems to be a tag, oh, Seychellois, pas le travail, Seychellois doesn't want to work. But I'll give you an example. I often walk from my place to the bus station there at Takamaka, near the church, near the clinic, at 5:30. And at 5:30 in the morning, it's dark. It's like it's shadows. And if you stand a little bit afar, you just hear this murmur, like mumbling. And to me, that's the pain of a person. This is a pain of, like this lady said to me, I never see the sun because I leave early and I come back late because of the traffic. They get stuck, and so you go in the dark, you come back in the dark, and she said, I never have time, basically, only sometime weekend, after church. And so there's now this element of tiredness, and then the bus trip. It's a long way to town, and then you get to Okap, the convoy starts, and that's stressful, because then you get tail off at work because you're late, and how do we overcome this? I've got an answer for that. Please ask me later on and I'll elaborate on it. But I've always thought if I had to do an awareness campaign, I would go there and eat at bus stop first thing in the morning, where I see this young mother with the little baby on her shoulder, and the other one holding her skirt, and she walks past. I don't know where she goes, maybe to drop the baby off somewhere. It's like 5:30, 5:15 in the morning. It's early. You look at that child, and why should this happen? You know. And then the tag that Seychelles is lazy. But then the first Belazar bus comes, then the Intendance road, and between the Intendance bus and the Takamaka bus and Belazar, Bougainville, Anse-Royal, 3-4 buses, it's full. It's only Seychelles going to work in town to do everyone's dirty work, you know. And what are they getting paid? A pittance? You know, do they get paid traveling time? Do they, you know, the institution, the factories or whatever organize a bus, a transport, air conditioned so they arrive fresh? Do we have an air conditioned bus to do that route? Does companies like IoT put a bus that would remove 50 cars on the road? If everybody could give each other the lift, there wouldn't be this chaos on the road every morning. You know, let's share, you know, there's, how do you say? But the people then has to come back, and in the afternoon you get stuck on the highway near the airport. That's another hour, you know. And so you've got this added stress on you all the time, and you could see the despair on people from day to day. Are we addressing this? No, we got big words, you know. We use all the big words, but it's still the same. It's like changing your shirt, you know. But this thing at Takamaka, my own wife, she lives the same time, rain or shine, every day, 7 days a week. She goes to look after her nephew who is in a wheelchair, you know, and in town, and basically, and it's far. This is the South Mahé, and I've always wondered if we were really focused in community, our leaders, our MNAs, our politician heads, we would see how we could develop jobs in communities, so we keep these people in communities. You know, we have to start basically, you know, stop the centralization of everything in town, decentralize. Anse-Royal is a big place, there's plenty of space. You know, let's focus on maybe, you know, building a bit of work at Anse-Royal, so these people won't have that far to travel every morning. I feel her pain because I see it. Because I look back at my life when I used to basically walk from so far away, you know. But the thing is, today I've got a red fridge, a washing machine, and a shed from recycled timber. You know, a recycled timber house and a few things, you know, and because I've worked for it, you know, and basically, and I think there's enough land in this country, you know, how do you call it, for us, for landowners today, and, you know, maybe the government is tied up with land, but there's enough big property. I mean, you look behind me there, all that land belongs to the ex-banyan tree property. Do you know how many houses you could build here? You know, and we've built some flats up there and moved people during election campaign, the last election, to move them from Saint Louis to Takamaka, and the Takamaka people go to Perseverance, which doesn't make sense because you move people away from their family, you know, and honestly, my dream as a community development officer at one time, I've got big dream for Takamaka if I could make a change. If I was, even I've offered to help, but my local MNA has told me on many occasions that I'm too old, you know, but what's too old? You know, I can still work, I can still think, I can still walk. I feel myself very strong. I volunteer to many things, and I don't know why he's used that tag, but, you know, maybe he has a reason. But I really wish I could, you know, give me that community of Takamaka for 5 years, and you'll see the difference I'll make. You know, I would basically create a lot of work in that district, you know, culturally, artistically, musically, you know, bring pride back to this unique Takamaka people, you know. Yeah.
Do you feel like when you try to make an impact or get involved, you get a lot of resistance and you're blocked?
I speak a lot because I have ideas, and if my ideas are wrong, well, you know, how do you call it? I should be told. But there's a tendency that you are helpless because you how can I say? We have to communicate. We can't just stay in a shell and don't get out. We must have, like I used to do in my last work in the Aboriginal community. It was like I was a council member. We had 13 different clans. So each clan were represented by one of their clan leaders, sometimes ladies and men. But it's like here, if maybe there was even it was suggested once by Minister Devika Vidot and the MNA for Belazar. We had a meeting at Takamaka, so there's a lot of people here that would join a voluntary. We don't need to be paid. We would just like to assist and fill in for the MNA at times, or liaise with the DA more and see how we could assist if they want, you know, projects, if they want submission writing. We can do all this. We can, you know, how do you say, our district is so full of artists. I think most of the musicians come from Takamaka. I will always say that. I don't mean to be disrespectful to the Seychelles people, but all the brain of this country comes from Takamaka. You know, we've done very well with 3 ministers in our district, artists and crafts, and we need to tap in. You know, we're preaching all this. I say it on TV. The people are not responding. The reason they are not responding because they don't feel they have ownership of their district. You know, we have to, because there's something that I noticed this year. Everyone around Mahé came to Takamaka, La Fête Takamaka. It was huge, massive, you know, and it was fun. People non-violently, you know. Okay, a bit of excess drinking, you know, problem with Kappa, you know, everybody came for 3 days, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, big party. I would develop this event to a bigger party next year with all sorts of activities in, you know, maybe encourage less drinking, but more stuff for the children and less, okay, the adult too, but more for the kids. And I'm proud to be a Takamakarian. You know, I love, even they call us Jimunova, but we are fighting tooth and nail to keep this Takamaka Ovan region pristine. I've already asked the president the other day in his public address in the community, and he promised us that no, there is no development that will go ahead at Police Bay, but you know, the district has the last say, and I'm holding him for his word, you know, because, how do you call it, because we don't want, all the tourists I speak to at Intendance, the reason they came there is because the north is saturated. You know, there's a market for the north people. I'm not saying, you know, the saturation, the crowdedness. It's not that. It's just there's a lot of people that's traveled here over the years because we have a lot of old repeaters, especially the German. I think I mentioned in an interview recently that I saw this lady crying down there, and I asked her why. She said, "Look at what they're doing to Intendance," you know, and I said, "What do you mean?" But she said, "That was a forest. I used to love walking from here to the beach, you know, because it gave me a sense of, oh, wow, you know, but now, well, she can still do that, but it's a pathway now, and a lot of her trees is gone, you know. But so we want to keep the Sarto wilderness, you know.
Can you tell us a little bit how you feel about Seychelles at the moment?
At the moment, how do you say, there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening. But there's one thing I'm very certain, and I think I was an ambassador for my country for, I would say, close to 15 years, working on expedition ship all around the world, telling people very proudly when I used to do the staff introduction, ladies and gentlemen, good evening or whatever, my name is Guy, I'm from the Seychelles Island, and most of the time I'll get an ovation, people will clap, and then for the maybe 10, 12 days during the trip, I'll be asked for dinner every night, twice a day. Sometimes I was bugged, people wanting to know about the Seychelles, young couple wanting to get married, and where would they go? And I used to send them to Four Seasons. And I'll never forget one day, my wife and I went to Four Seasons at the gate on a bike. We were refused. And I thought, even I'd ring, that was some time ago, but I was on the National Geographic Explorer with an American guest going to the Mahé. So she invited me for lunch, and I was declined entry at the gate because their policy was they didn't accept only the guests, and this lady was not very happy, and I think she checked out. But how do you say, if we're not careful, we're going to be like everyone else, and people will go everywhere else. You take places like Bali, Mauritius, other places where there's maybe more to offer, and we have probably more to offer, but we are not. It feels at the moment everything we're trying to do is plastic. We are trying too hard. It has to come from the people. It has to come from the resident of Takamaka. Give them the freedom to have a little corner gallery near the police station there. We could maybe lobby it with the owners there to have a little timber shed where they could sell their tente vacroix, their crafts, and in turn we could teach the school. We have to put the responsibility back on the community and get the community also to make decisions, not everyone else making decisions for us, because I feel slowly we are starting to lose the plot and maybe not believing in anyone anymore. At the moment, we have to take a back seat, I feel, I'll be really honest with you. I've been supporting the ruling party now for many years because I didn't quite like what was happening in my country before, because there was a lot of victimization with no pack no, and you had to know people that they were catering for maybe their voters, and other people miss out, and I'm not talking about this little bit because of getting back to the past, and I don't want to bring politics into that, but I supported Father, and because I wanted the change in this country, and I'm still, how do you say, I still have 2.5 years to go, and like he said, people will vote for his performance. Behind the scene, there's a lot happening. There's a lot maybe he's trying to bring to the country, but we have to also be a little bit careful. We can't leave everyone else behind, and I think this is where it's creating this division in this country. People whinge about employment. We whinge about health. Not to be on top standard, and basically when you look in a lot of places in Africa and other places, we like driving a Rolls Royce, but what's not working? Is it maybe hygiene we don't have anymore? Is it because nobody says good morning anymore? we're not warm to one another anymore. You know, what have we lost? You know, what you know, I hear the Minister of Education, you know, trying his heart out, you know, fundamentally for me it's reading, writing, expressing, you know, until age 6, and then the world is your oyster. Is that happening? Maybe it is. You know, are we leaving people behind? But our politics is, how do you call it? I think we have to be careful that even for us activists, we get on because we go to meetings and we go to workshop, we get invited here and there. But what about the other people? What about the other people that didn't vote from the other party? We have to respect them too. You know, they have the same right as anyone. You know, and you know, is there maybe a tendency that they're very bitter, they still want to remain to the past? Well, in 2.5 years' time, it'll be the perfect time for them. You know, vote back to where we come from. If we want to go back to what we were, so be it. Let's go back. I'm hoping not, you know, and you know, I would, if I was 10 years younger, you know, really lobby to form the Green Party in this country and get the younger generation of this country. We talk a lot about the environment, especially the young people. We focus, all the workshop of the world is here in Seychelles. You know, everybody wants to come to our little paradise. You know, this is happening, this is happening. But then what after? Is it, you know, every time there's a new council, oh yeah, we're going to, and then what happened after that?
So, how do you feel about the environment under this new administration?
The environmental minister, I wouldn't say he's a personal good friend, but we've worked together. You know, he is the one that has appointed me maybe with the president on the Seychelles Island Foundation as as a member, board of trustees. With a guy with his knowledge, I think it should be a little bit more serious. And I think where it fails is under him, because a lot of his staff are very young people, which will not question a foreigner, like I would say maybe the EIA of what's happening at Intendance, you know, and basically, because I was there recently at a meeting, there was only a few of us outside the thing, apart from the DJ that was asking a few questions, but everyone else just had a notebook, and then, you know, so I was thinking to myself, is it because they don't understand the concept of the project? Should the AIA be tailored for 12 months, 2 years prior, so all the people involved in that decision-making process goes to workshop at least once a week, so they know exactly what to follow? Because I don't think this is happening at the moment. At the moment, it's just a banded thing. Because if you know, if you ask a question, oh yeah, we're looking into it, and then you don't hear any answer. So obviously something is breaking down somewhere, you know.
So, let's talk a little bit more about Intendance and what's happening at Intendance.
Well, the Intendance saga really started for me. Actually, I'll go back 4 years ago, more than 3 years ago, because the whole, just at the back of my place here in the bush, this property there belongs to the ex-banyan tree. I don't know who the new owner is, but one morning I could hear an excavator going down and the tree is falling. But in the same token, before I start talking about this, what I would like to say, there's 2 rivers that runs down here, and it was full of frogs. And I used to love sitting here because you could know when it was going to rain, you know, and this is something the Aboriginal people has always taught me. You know, sit down and observe, because you observe the weather, you will observe nature, you will observe wildlife, you know when things are happening. But the frog, all the croaking could tell you that, oh yeah, maybe the rain is coming, but it was lively. We had so many frogs. We had two types of snakes. I've seen chameleon and stick insects. And further down, we got the moray eel in the river, and a lot of shrimps, the endemic ones. It was full of stuff here. But when that excavator went down, so I went down to investigate. All the trees were being pushed down, the palm, and they said, are they building a pipeline for the sewage to go to the marshland? Because they're going to commission the flats, the Desobent flat up there. And they had built this huge, sewage treatment plant up there. I have no problem with treatment plants, but treatment plants got to be, it's got to be run properly, water tested, the grey water, and basically, if it's going to be dumped into the primary marshland, well, there should be more checked, maybe from the top, the discharge, to see what level of protein and nitrogen in there, that it doesn't escalate other algae bloom or duckweeds and whatever, So I took a petition. Then I think there was a lawyer that helped me to put a court case, and I was dealing with Minister Cosgrove then, but he had no time for the letter. Eventually, it was like beating your head against the wall, and like everything else, they burn you out and you give up. It's like, the shrink, they put you in a shrink suit and basically but that was the last regime. So, of course, I was all gung-ho for the change, because I thought, we have to stop all this, which I thought, we'll be stronger and basically more accountable, but it doesn't seem that's happening either, So then my question was, why are you burying a 12-inch pipeline next to the running stream? Because if it leaks, the tree roots will get between the wells. It will leak eventually. It will seep and it will start up here, because there was an area, the catchment, where the water was pumped further down than to the reservoir, Takamaka. But that was totally ignored. And then they said, are we not using this water anymore? And then there was plan to have a dam down here. This is fresh water, like good water that we are wasting. Water is a big issue in the world, and we are just contaminating it, So the pipeline was then backfilled, and then I remember one time where the fuse PVC, there was a leakage, that was fixed, but the sewage from there, not the sewage, but the grey water, is next to the pumping station. Even they don't use the pumping station, but it filters right in front of it. So with the strong wind, and if there's like evaporation and stuff, they start using that stuff, it'll be of a concern. It'll be de lo caca again, like la misère.
Well, apparently it is now with the water testing.
Yeah. But anyway, then the project at Intendance started, and I had some concern, because I went to the EIA meeting at Takamaka, and it was a 45 minutes rush. And naively, we didn't ask many questions, because we thought they would toe the line to, not to the tree destruction and basically all these things that are happening, the excavation of the marshland, all the fern removes, and the contamination that has happened. And I've personally seen it when I go past that grey water was being washed from the accumulation block. There was a pump there on a morning run when I was picking rubbish on the beach. I used to religiously every morning, my dog and I pick up rubbish on the beach, plastic, and even there's someone paid, but there was still, they don't patrol the beach. So I did that, and with some of the MCSS staff, and so the animals could basically nest in a quiet environment. Even the tourists used to sometimes come and help me, and foreigners. But then when the development started, started feeling very uncomfortable with it, because what I was told up there, maybe due to my fault also, because we didn't have access to the AIA, which I thought there would be a copy at the district. There wasn't. There was one available because I asked the DA. She said she didn't have one. So where would I get one? At the Ministry of Environment? And I didn't know. But then I could see all basically the damage that was happening, and also now when it's finished. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against the hotel because the banyan tree was there before, but the banyan tree seems to have more respect for the environment, and maybe they also started the dumping of the sewage, because I asked myself, where did the sewage go? So it's obviously that everything went to the Lama, but before there was all the fern that would circulate, all the affluent, we had more rain, when they build the road is higher. That was one of the luxury they were going to give access to the beach. But then even the survey assures me that the culvert level is same level as the drainage to go to the left-hand side, that the one that gets discharged into the sea. But obviously that's not happening because it's been a carpet for nearly over 15 months now. It's just, I call it, but it's duckweed, which now has all washed in the ocean. How are we protecting our ocean? And we're dumping all that caca and sewage. This in turn, that level of affluent and the algae bloom will probably play a big impact on the coral reef in the far corner of the beach there, People walking in it, and children swimming. I saw children swimming in that marshland. There was a sign erected last week, no swimming, because I complained. Did you see a sign yesterday?
A very small
little,
sign.
there should be a big sign, laminated, not an A4 paper in the
And they
rain.
also mentioned nothing about the fact that it's
No,
contaminated.
what is this, and Department of Environment, wake up to yourself, and this is, and I noticed yesterday people were actually playing in even they had break the levee for the water to run into the ocean. People were walking, what if you got a cut? We're talking about hepatitis and mosquito breeding area, I mean, it's a health issue,
And you used to swim in that marsh.
We all learn to sail. Ask any person at Takamaka from Intendance. We all learn to swim there. This is my sadness, man, that I won't ever be able to swim the Lama again. It was river gravel, sweet, it was beautiful. We fished for Makambale, Lapia, the milkfish used to go in there, libin, to spawn, mallets. Do you see them now? Zero.
Zero.
And
Well, from the information that we have, we did a recent test of that water, and the sample we got back, we were told that, from scientists, we were told that they would be surprised if any fish would be able to survive in that water.
Yes.
Because it's so toxic.
Yeah, but the thing that worries me also is all these young people working. If there's an issue, why isn't, if there is a health risk, of course, the AIA, by the independent person that basically did the assessment to look at the to really challenge the EIA that we said it's okay, is of a major concern. Maybe they should close shop and basically give it a couple of years, so cure the water. And also the future with the new development. Are we going to continue dumping grey water in the lake, or what's happening? Anyone telling us?
No.
No?
And what about the terrapins and the turtles? Because that's had the development has had a big impact on those as well.
The terrapins, the terrapins is a bit of a, how do you say, I recently deliberately commented so I could get some result, with a environmental group from the district, and because everybody kept telling me the terrapins, yeah, they were recaptured and translocated back to Australia, but by who, when, how? But then I sat, the NGO dealing with it didn't know anything, and no one really knew what was going on, to tell you the truth. But then, even after that, when the 350 plus 50 concept, everybody jumped up and said, no, 103 or whatever, anyway. So what I did, I got very disillusioned, and I cut myself totally away from Intendance. I didn't do even rubbish pickup anymore, and even every morning my dog would wait here for me with a bag. Come on, let's go. I couldn't, because I felt, if this keeps going on, what's the future for Seychelles? There's going to be, I'm sure, other big development, even worse, because I'm going to recommend that even we want to give our young professional all the opportunity to make decisions, but on the level of EIA, I think there should be one or two outside person assisting the locals, so to challenge developers, because us Seychellois, we can't. We're just being rolled over, and yes sir, no sir. It feels that way. At least some independent person could say, no man, this is not on. This is what you say you will do. You're not going to excavate the Lamar. There was no talk about removing all the ferns. I didn't hear it. And if later on it was agreed to do it, why? So we have a lake, and now for the future, are we dumping more of our effluent? Because once somebody asked me, but what's the alternative? I said the alternative is we can get a silage truck to come and pump all the sewage and dump it into a proper treatment plant somewhere, and basically until all this is resolved. And maybe that's what they should, even now at the moment, where's all the, I don't know the site very well, but I could see on the other side, before they've shut it down for renovation, there was, at least probably more than 50 construction workers living there.
Oh,
So,
I would say hundreds.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. Yes.
Yeah.
And if this was a small local construction company that was building a development, you could understand that they're struggling to do what they're doing financially. But you mentioned before, you're not sure who the owners are. Nobody knows who the owners are, because it's owned by a company that represents the sheikhs of Abu Dhabi and United Arab Emirates, and these are the richest people in the world.
and that's not the first time it's happened. They had the Lamize issue, and basically this one is of a concern, and basically a few days ago, when the water started running because of the week's rain, not in great quantity, because for the species we need the salt water to come in. It's a two-way thing, but at the moment it seems there's no wash down because there's no water. There's a little bit of elevation, but it stinks down there.
Yeah.
So is that vegetation decomposition, or is that all the sewage from before? I cannot swear that it is physically that I've seen coming from the tank, but the cook told me, because I asked him, what was that washing? He said, caca from over there, and so it must be that all the toilets were linked to those tanks, then pumped to this one. But and the other side, probably the grey water from the flats up here also, I don't know how often they they dump it. This is something maybe you could find out from PUC, if it's PUC that's in charge. But it's not solving the problem, is it? You know, there's a huge problem, how do you say, and our leaders need to address it. We have to be really, really, like the Australians say, fair dinkum, you know, and be serious of our action to protect this fragile planet and this beautiful country of ours, you know. Like I said, you know, I have respect, but my patience is running thin, you know. It's, how do you say, it's not because I'm a supporter of the ruling political party, but they're starting to lose me a lot.
So, what would you recommend for young Seychellois, for middle-aged Seychellois? What steps should we take going forward to minimize these issues?
You know, it's very evident looking at the moment, because even we're trying so hard to bridge to reunite our citizens, but that's not happening. There's a lot of not happy people, miscontentment of, you know, there's a lot of struggle. The poverty margin, you know, 40-something%, is that getting deeper, or, you know, are we addressing this, you know, and there's an element of lack of apathy, you know, it's of despair in a way, and then, and how, and some other people somewhere else, they're trying very hard to bridge, but it feels like fake, plastic. You know, we are not, I think I've said that before, we are not regrouping our citizen, you know, the division gets, you know, I'm okay living on the hill, and how do you say, and I don't know, I more and more development with red soil running into the ocean. The coastline now, after the rain, is not turquoise anymore, just red soil everywhere. The beach is starting to stain, even the pristine white beach. It's a lot of places, but the young people of this country, out there in this population of ours, there must be someone that's willing to stand up and make a change, you know, to challenge, you know, to challenge the government, to keep them on their toe. Maybe they will have the balance of power, and preferably a Green Party movement for the young people to decide for their future, because I personally tell you, us my age, we've failed them. You know, we've failed them terribly. You know, we're trying to fix it like a band-aid, but it's not going to happen. You know, there's not a day you open TV, the social issue, you know, the drug issue, you know how much are we dealing with all this, you know, where, you know, there's a lot of families suffering, lots and lots of suffering. We're tiny, you know, it's genocide what's happening here. You know, you feel like it's a lost generation.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lost generation. You know, so are we addressing it? Maybe we are. You know, we can build all the jail in the world we want, but I don't think it is. Because, I mean, you look perfect. The perfect example is, you know, when the hotel opens, of course, because the idea was to employ. Because I asked one of the engineers one day, you know, he said, oh, the bloody tree will grow back, and just realize how many employment it's going to create for your district. But I said, a 7-star hotel is going to, how many people in my district trained to work in a 7-star institution? You know, I don't think, yeah, we'll get, you know, the dishwashing and a few other jobs, but, you know, you'll be flat out filling in 100 jobs from Takamaka. I hope I'm wrong. It'll be fantastic if we did, but with that level of residency, 7-star, you need high qualified. Maybe a staff per 7 staff per client. And it's a big ask. And do we have this workforce? No, we don't. Do we have to bring foreign workers? Of course, yes. And it's very evident. This concept of foreigners taking our jobs. Well, they will always take our job because we don't have enough manpower in this country. We're tiny. This is the whole thing going back to this tiny country, and are we ready to move that far ahead for a foreign exchange? I don't think so. Maybe develop what we have and keep like back in the 90s, that where high-paid tourists came. They paid enough in revenue to sustain the whole, because quantity is not the issue, and that's tend to be the motive at the moment, what I hear from our tourism people, we can't sustain 700,000 people environmentally, La Digue is already saturated, it's, how do you say, and if we want to be like Kuta Beach on Bali, so be it, but it's not healthy, not this. Seychelles will lose its touch, and I hope not, yes, I tend to always dwell on the positive. I try to, and I'm not cowardly trying to erase. I'm always hopeful, and that's me, hopeful that, and I love going down there, making tourists, teaching children little things, and they help me clean up the beach, and because my passion is from the south. But the young people of here, and you talk to a lot of them, they all want to go, and that's fine, but how many is gonna go? Where would they go? I left, and I came back. Maybe that's why I'm talking this way today. I could have been probably the same too, but I was able to open my horizon, and I think it's really important for the young people of Seychelles to do the same too, but also for the one that are here at the moment to stand up, fight, say strong, don't get bullied, stick to your guns, and then we're there to help you, so.
Yeah. Well, that's very inspiring. You're an inspiring person. We love talking to you. Before I met you, I asked you the other day, I said, are there other people that have a similar vision to you that we can talk to? And we were struggling a little bit to find. So I'm sure there are.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. There was a time, I would say late 90s, all these young government, how do you say, all these young government, the Selby Remy, the Joseph Francois, Camille Wao, Pearly Constance, there was all the natural, there was a lot of get up and go, Rodney Franchette, and working for the Department of Environment, there's, they made you accountable, they were passionate. But is it now that maybe the young people have lost hope? Because I spoke last year to some of the Minister of Environment, young, how do you say, field staff doing turtle monitoring, because there's a lot of poaching that goes on down here, and they assured me that even they report the poaching, nothing gets done. There was somebody caught down here with a freezer full of turtle meat. What has happened? Nothing. And so you stop reporting. We forever busting people left, right, center, with turtle meat and dolphin and God knows what. But what happened, and we you know, and there's an ad every night saying, you know, this is the turtle nesting season. Is that basically just because you have, I know you have to do it, but what are the people coming down targeting those very, how do you say, critically endangered species, you know, and is this season going to be the same? You know, the habitat with the new hotel development at Intendance, which they've moved right into the Scovola or the Voluce. I don't have basically in places an alley, a path for me to walk anymore because, you know, their dining thing has encroached right up in, and that's where the turtle will be now nesting under the French port. You know, of course there'll be lights. The light is going to maybe the mortality rate is going to increase because, you know, they need to go back at sea. But even I've been told they're going to, but I personally feel they've moved too close to the disrespect, maybe the, you know, what was given by the EIA, you know, because I read the other day, and it's totally against, I don't know why they did this, you know, is that lack of respect?
It's
You
because
know?
they can.
Because if I was an officer of the Department of Environment, I would get them to pull it down.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
that's it.
that's my duty.
They know that somebody will allow them to do it.
But
Eventually.
whoever that person has got into that mess needs to fix it,
Yeah.
or be held responsible.
Yeah.
You know, and the Seychelles people need to question, you know, and maybe have a debate on national TV to, because we never hear the truth here, you know. Now are we going to say maybe the consultant that's basically questioned the EIA that he's wrong? The guy's a professional and he's seen it, you've seen it, you know, and this is basically what I've been saying from day one for 3 years now, you know, and I was reporting things where, you know, and I've spoken to a lot of higher people in the government, you know, but, you know, life goes on, you know, and
It seems to me like the people that are preparing this EIA are making a small fortune, and then it has no jurisdiction, it has no
the,
place.
yes, they tend to, how do you call it, they tend to, what's the word, they tend to basically have all the answers, but they don't have all the answers, you know. Is that because they've written the IA under false pretext, or you know, that they can't ask questions now? Is that because later on, because I've got money, I say, no, this is what I want, so you just ignore it? But no, it doesn't work that way. We have, you know, an environmental law, we have a plan, we have something to respect, you know, and I don't think we've done that at all. You know, we haven't done that, you know.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to have this first chat with us,
Yes,
because we're
sure.
definitely going to have more
Yeah.
talks with you. But to honor your spirit, I'd like to finish on a positive note and find out, what is your favorite thing about Seychelles?
My favorite, it's just my country, the ocean, the mountain, the people, our culture, our Bible in Creole, our dictionary in Creole, our proud language, which a lot of people don't really, you know. I mean, today I heard someone said, no, my child only speaks English at school, but she wants to be a lawyer. But so if she wants to be a lawyer one day, I said, but don't you like your Creole language? Oh, no, we're not going to use it. I said, but one day you'll need that Creole to express when you maybe trying to save her life, to defend her. She said, but it's not important. It's not important. It's your soul. It's your skin. It's your everything. Your, you know, I'm so proud to be a Seychellois, you know, and basically the environment. I tell the world about my country, you know. That's what I do on expedition ships. I educate and I tell people, young people, I tell everybody, I love the south of Mahé. You know, it's my favorite piece. I like the islands. You know, we got so many islands, and you know, I even forgot to mention my dream job managing Aldabra World Heritage Site. You know, maybe we can talk about this some other time. You know, and
Absolutely. We have
yes,
so much that we want to hear
yes,
about
and
from you.
yeah,
Well, I think we'll leave it at that for today.
yes,
Thank you
sure.
so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for. Sorry, I didn't jump all over the place.
It's
No.
such a
No.
pleasure talking to you,
Yes.
Guy. Really,
Yeah.
it's a breath of fresh air for
Oh,
us.
thank you, mate.
Love it.
I have, how do you call it? There's Weval up there, look, when he first came to my house, sitting exactly where you are. See on that newspaper? Yeah. That's the hat that got me into trouble on Aldabra. I had it hang like this in my office and took a photo and sent it to State House and basically kindly asked me to move on, you know, and as if politics had, you know, I saved Aldabra. I did. Aldabra, we've had a 5-star hotel there by now. You know, I fought tooth and nail for that, and that's why maybe today they'll put me on the board, you know. I'm not a scientist, but my input, because Aldabra is not just all about science, and this country too. I forgot to mention, you know, we have there's a cultural aspect of the island too. You know, I've documented all that. You know, if you ever watch some footage and
Absolutely. We
yeah,
definitely do.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've made many, many, many documentaries, you know, and on the island, and basically because prior arriving to Aldabra, there was people getting stabbed and died there. They were killing. You know, I brought Aldabra back. Scientists were not going anymore. You know, I came back with an army discipline with staff and, you know, creating multi-skilling in the workplace. Boys, girls, you know, everybody drives boat, not this bulliness. And I had no time for negative. I had a job to do, you know, and today the rejoice is maybe putting me on the board. I was very grateful because it's been an honor, you know, and the board now we're doing great things. Maybe one day I'll get you to come and interview the board.
We would love to.
Yes, I'll ask them, yeah. There's a lot of very young people, and this needs to be showed to the country, you know,
Yes.
to that that age group of media, you know, this is what I'm begging for them to, you know, to get involved, you know. Everyone is doing environmental science, but then we die out. Where are they? They're very scared. The Aboriginal used to use this, you can kill me, but you can't eat me, you know, and it's the same, you know. I'm not bad-mouthing my country, but merely saying what's wrong, you know. You know, am I wrong? You know, like everybody is talking about the same thing. You know, we should all, you know, get involved and sit down and basically try and fix our, you know, the issue. Thank you for having the opportunity to have a chat, you know, because you know, even I've spoken to other people, but it'll be also nice for you one day to go around and ask a few other people there that frequents, you know, I can, you know, just ask them, you know, and what do they think? They'll give you their honest opinion. You know, it's important for us, you know.
Man, thank you. As I said before, you've inspired us to do this video. You've inspired us to talk to other people, and I'm sure this video will inspire many, many people.
Oh, thank you. You too, mate. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Yeah, we'll have many more stories to tell.
Yeah.
I've got so many stories.
We look forward to it.
Yeah, so many stories.